and welcome to a brand new episode of my Breaking Lies Building Truth podcast. You are so welcome here, whether you're watching it on my YouTube channel or you're listening to it on my podcast channel. So today's topic is a little bit different to what we've looked at so far. We've looked at the silent majority, we've looked at hurt in romantic relationships. This one is I'm hoping that today's will be part one of 2 episodes, where today's will be a little bit of my story of something that I've journeyed through the last 6 months. But the hope of me opening up about it is to create a greater dialogue between you and me. I want to hear about your experiences, because I would imagine there are many of you like me out there who have gone through what I've gone through, but perhaps feel a little bit alone in it. So the last 6 months I have been experiencing hair loss, and it has taken me by surprise. It has been very upsetting. It has stirred up in me insecurities that I was not expecting, insecurities that I thought I had dealt with many years ago. And it has been quite a lonely journey. And I wonder if already this resonates with you. There have been other times on this journey that I have wanted to share my journey with you, but I'm very mindful of the fact that there are those of you who have gone through chemo and radiotherapy, and as a result of that, lost your hair. I'm aware that there are those of you who, later down the line than me, who have gone through menopause and as a result have experienced hair loss. I am aware that there are many of you who, because of extreme stress, have suffered with alopecia, where you've actually had clumps and, real, sparing gapes and holes on your scalp from where you've lost your hair. So when I, in a way, compare what I've gone through to that, I guess there was an element of a lie within me that was believing that there was no point in me sharing my journey because it's not as extreme as one of those other cases. And I suppose then as well on top of that, people who love me, well-meaning people, those that wanted to encourage me, the words that they were using were perhaps reinforcing that little lie within me that was kind of saying, Marcia, your story doesn't matter. Your journey isn't as important as others. In the grand scheme of things, what have you got to complain about? And so, because I have been blessed my whole life with a huge, thick amount of hair, a lot of people, in meaning well, would say, but Marcia, looking at you, you couldn't tell. Or, well, aren't you so lucky that you started out with such a head of thick hair? Imagine if you'd had finer hair, and where would you be now? And I accept all of that, but with that, it still kind of reinforced this lie. And I use the word lie loosely. It was almost like something that was trying to keep me remaining in that silent majority and not using my voice and standing up and talking about this. Because I've got to say, even when I spoke to people who work in the professional industry when it comes to hair, they were very blasé about it, not with any disrespect to me, but they were very like, oh Marcia, this happens all the time. Women shed their hair all the time. And I'm like, really? Well, I didn't know about this outside of menopause, and as I say, those extreme situations where people are carrying cancers. I didn't know that women of my age and younger were shedding their hair, and that it was a thing. And so I did think to myself, well, if I'm not aware of this, there could be others of you out there who are experiencing a similar thing, and it isn't due to stress, and it isn't because of a severe illness, and it isn't because you're in menopause, but you are experiencing hair loss. And maybe even like me, you have experienced hair loss where you've had a thick head of hair, so nobody really notices. And so it's almost as if the lie is saying to you, then it doesn't matter what you're feeling and what you're experiencing doesn't matter. And I just feel like I need to put a little bit of a stake in the ground today and just break down some lies around this and build a little bit of truth to encourage you, if what I'm saying resonates with you, that actually it does matter. It really doesn't matter if what you're left with is hair that looks like mine. You know yourself, the volume of hair that you had before, and you're the one that has had to experience walking through, waking up every day and seeing hair on your pillow. You're the one that has had to experience every time you've gone to wash your hair and you've gone to comb out the tats after washing your hair. You're the one that's probably like me, continually triggered every time you find yourself in that environment because of the clumps of hair that have found in the comb, because of the clumps of hair that have been found on the ground. And even just the physical experience of walking through that can be very traumatic. And so that's something I would love to hear from you about over these next few weeks. I would love you to private message me, or send me a voice note over Instagram, and just let me know if your experience is similar to mine, because I would love to know how you have navigated it, and what tools and strategies have you used to ensure that you have not been consumed by the lie, that it hasn't taken you down into a spiral. Thankfully, it never got that extreme for me, but certainly, as I say, it did shake up in me. My goodness, what is my identity in? When I was younger, I used to suck my thumb, was a self-soothing technique. And I suppose now that I'm older, that has translated into a habit of playing with my hair, running my fingers through my hair. And absent-mindedly over the last 6 months, as I have run my fingers through my hair, the clumps of hair that would come out in my hand, it was just so shocking. It really did affect me. And I suppose that was physically how it affected, it affected me. It created a little bit of stress within, and I had to do what I needed to do in order to alleviate that and to calm down those cortisol levels. But certainly on a deeper level, it got me to thinking about my identity and how much was the hair on my head a crutch for me? Was it a continued mask? I don't know if you have an attribute, a physical attribute, that because you've had it your whole life, people have complimented you on it. For me, it has always been my hair, and have you got extensions in? Oh no, you're the thick of your hair, and look how your hair holds the curl. And I always would have just said thank you and moved on from that, but I didn't realize just how much perhaps my ego was taking in those compliments, and perhaps without realizing it, there was an element of confidence that I carried myself with that was based on me having this good hair, this head of thick hair. I know this podcast isn't going to be for everybody. There'll be a number of you out there that might even see what I'm talking about as being quite frivolous, and I respect you for your viewpoint. But when you have walked through hair loss, whether that is shedding to a point of having no hair, or in my case, I now have half the amount of hair that I had 6 months ago. No one can deny our own personal journey, our own personal testimony, and I decided that regardless of what everybody would think about this, perhaps in a negative way, I was determined to talk about it, because there might be one or two of you out there that have experienced what I have experienced. And perhaps, as I said, like me, you felt like you can't really speak up about it. You've been part of that silent majority because you've thought to yourself, well, look, it's not like post chemo, it's not like it's menopause, in the grand scheme of things. But actually, you're still entitled to acknowledge and become aware of how that traumatic experience has made you feel and how it has affected you. In terms of breaking the lie around it and building the truth within my own life, as I say, it really started to take me on a journey of, my goodness, I didn't realize perhaps just how much of maybe a comfort blanket or a safety net. I don't know, language is a bit clunky perhaps, but certainly there was something about my hair that was connected to confidence. And here's what's interesting. I don't know if, like, for you, and maybe it's not a hair loss thing, maybe it's something else in your life whereby you thought you were over it, an insecurity that you thought you were over, an insecurity you thought you had dealt with, an insecurity that you thought was part of your past that you'd overcome and were moving forward in life. And then something has happened, or you found yourself in an environment where that insecurity has just come right back to the surface again, and you've thought to yourself, what is going on? Are you kidding me? That's been dealt with. What's happening here? And for those of you that have been journeying with me on these podcasts, particularly in this season, you'll know part of my journey in terms of when I was younger, not thinking I was pretty, had very low self-esteem, and the journey that I went on with that. What I'd like to add into that is on that personal development journey, as I realized, oh my goodness, I don't think I'm pretty, I started to recognize what were my coping mechanisms, or rather, how was I buffering? You know, I've talked about that before. What was I hiding behind? I was hiding behind makeup, and I was hiding behind a blow dry, you know, beautifully turned out hair, this thick head of hair. And so I had maybe, gosh, I can't remember how many months. I gave myself a goal when I was younger of when I was going out socially, I had to scrape my hair back into a bun, and I had to cleanse, tone, moisturize my face, and go out for evening socially with no makeup on. So no makeup on and hair tied back. And that was one of the most difficult seasons for me to journey, but I was determined to do it. So I was out of an evening with friends, chatting to men, and having to really dig deep into the truth that who I am enough the way that I am, and that men will be attracted to me not because of this mask, not because of makeup, not because of a head of hair, but they're going to be attracted to me purely because of who I am. And that you know, hair that is sitting well, or a full face of flawless makeup, that's frosting. Yeah, that is not the main ingredients of who I am. That is frosting. I needed, and I was determined to get to a place in my identity and confidence in who I was in terms of my beauty, that I would be able to leave the house with no makeup on and hair tied back and feel just as confident as when you've spent a few hours getting yourself ready to go out for an evening. Okay, and certainly when it comes to meeting members of the opposite sex, I definitely wanted to be in a place where I was confident if I saw them like a sweaty Betty coming out of the gym, as opposed, it's in the same way as if I was to meet them out socially of an evening. You get me? So as far as I was concerned, that was dealt with. That confidence was built. I know who I am. I know what I bring to the table in terms of beauty. We move, right? So these last 6 months have just been like, oh, Keska, like what is actually going on here? You know, I really didn't think that my identity or part of my confidence was tied into my hair, but you know, it's definitely made me realize that it was. I think I've just been very, very surprised at the insecurities that would come, that, you know, as I would go to run my fingers through my hair, and you do start to see the gaps, or for the very first time in my life I can touch my hair and feel my scalp. That's very, very odd. I don't know if you can take the experience that I've gone through, and even if it's not a hair loss thing, can relate it to another aspect of your life where there's maybe been a loss of some kind, or just something that is shook up in you, an insecurity that you thought that you had dealt with. Yeah, so I just felt like now was the time to share it. I've been doing a lot of discovery work over the last 6 months, and we think, by Jove, we've got it. We think we have found what it is in me, and it seems to be an extreme deficiency in a certain vitamin / mineral. And so now I will begin the journey to get that bad boy into me, to see this hair grow back. And you know, it's funny how life will show you things. I was at an award ceremony at the weekend, and on my table alongside me was a lady who's just come through the other side of breast cancer and had to go through chemo and lost all her hair. And she was telling me that she didn't just lose her hair, she lost her eyebrows, her eyelashes, her fingernails, her toenails. And it's all beginning to grow back now. And I was just so inspired by her, and the way in which she was able to carry herself through that. But even with that, there was still a little bit of a lie that wanted to jump on the bandwagon and say, you see, Marcia, like in the grand scheme of things, listen, don't get me wrong, I spend my life measuring things in my life, or say bad times or ugly times or difficult times or moments of insecurity. That is one of the tools that I use. I measure it by telling myself, in the grand scheme of things, in the light of eternity. But for those of us out there in particular who have personality types whereby it's always about everybody else and maybe we get left behind, that for example, when it comes to self-care, if somebody picks up the phone and needs you, that the first thing that you'll let go in your list of priorities is your self-care. When you have the kind of personality type where you maybe are generally put my teeth back in, generally thinking of others, then we have to be careful, because the lie will then say to us, look, Marcia, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you've still got a head of hair, you still got your nails, your eyelashes, your eyebrows, you get me. But actually what that does is it's dulling down, it's dumbing down, and it's kind of disrespecting what you're feeling. And if you don't talk out what you're feeling, if you don't acknowledge what you're going through, if you don't become aware of how this loss or whatever it is for you is affecting you, well, then it's going to affect you. If you don't acknowledge it, if you just swallow it and hide it away or put it on a shelf, it will manifest itself in some way in your life, whether that be physically or relationally, or even how you view yourself when you look in the mirror. So yes, I don't know how long I've been talking here. I'm just going to click on this. I want to see, I'm curious, will it let me? Can I see how long I've been talking? Here, put on the time. Right, so there's just 15 minutes today as opposed to the hour. But I don't feel like this one needs to be a long, drawn out thing. I just wanted to share my testimony today and the experience that I've gone on with hair loss. I mean, the beauty that's come out of it for me is it's made me realise that India Ari has a song, beautiful song called I Am Not My Hair. Now she's talking about it from the perspective as a black woman, but for me, like, I now know, like, I am not my hair. It has taken me, it's been difficult, but I have worked through it to a point of, do you know what? If I keep losing my hair, if the hair loss continues, then it is what it is, because I am who I am, and that doesn't dictate. But that doesn't mean I didn't go through triggering moments, especially in the hairdresser seat. After, you know, during a blow dry, as I said before, and we go to brush out the hair, and it was just clumps and clumps and clumps of hair on the floor. So I have been very blessed with the support network that I've had around me, whether it be from a professional standpoint to do with hair, professional standpoint to do with nutrition, or just, you know, my loved ones, having those people that you can talk it through with that aren't going to diminish or dismiss what you are going through. So for those of you that maybe this does resonate with, ensure you've got those safe people around you, the ones that are going to support you through it and help you keep a healthy perspective, but also allow you to talk out, you know, on those days where it is uncomfortable or you are feeling a little bit upset about it. And you know, the beauty that's come out of it, just the other week, was it last Friday? With my hairdresser for the very first time in 6 months, when she blow dried my hair, rather than just leaving the curl as it was, because we were trying to make the hair seem thick. For the very first time, she was actually able to use the comb and brush the comb through the hair, and the hair remained full. And she said to me, Marcia, not one hair has come out as I've brushed through your hair today. And it was a moment, it really was a moment for us. And then we took a wee video and we shared that with the other professionals that have been helping me, and it was a real celebratory moment. And I think perhaps because, yes, I'm still working through it, and yes, there are days where hairs are still coming out, and I don't know how long this will continue. So I guess because I am still in the thick of it, but also because we've seen a little glimmer of hope, now felt like the appropriate time, whereby, yes, I'm still vulnerable with it, but I'm not going to fall apart on this podcast, because actually my reason for sharing this isn't so much just about me. It's really more about you. And, you know, as I say, and I know I've said this a few times, but I kind of feel like I need to keep reiterating it. It's not to take away, and I can't begin to compare to like that lady that I spoke to at the awards ceremony who's post chemo. I can't imagine what it's like if you're going through menopause, or, you know, extreme stress means you're navigating alopecia. But there are others, if I exist, and there are others like me out there that exist, that for whatever reason that you're not aware of yet, you're experiencing hair loss, regardless of how thick the hair that you started out with. It's still a journey that you've had to walk through and experience. So I suppose I am sharing this because I would love to hear from you. I think I want to present an opportunity if you find yourself in that silent majority thinking, I can't really talk about this because, when I look at others, look, I want to give you that platform and that opportunity to be able to talk about it. And obviously in a confidential way. When you send me your voice notes, when you send me your private messages, it's not because I'm going to say, oh, Claire from such and such, it won't be like that. It'll remain anonymous, but it would be lovely to be able to represent your voice. Yeah. And by you using your voice, by you stepping out of the silent majority and sharing your stories with me, I then get on the second part of this podcast to share your stories with others. So that could help break the lies in them and build the truth in them. You get me? I'm looking to create a community here where it's not just always about me speaking. I want you to speak as well. But I can do that talking on your behalf if you see what I'm saying. So please, can you send me your stories if this resonates with you, that your journey with hair loss, and tell me about the most difficult moments that you've had. Tell me about strategies that you've used to be able to navigate it. Have you had a support network around you? What pieces of advice would you give to people out there who are maybe for the first time starting to brush their hair and see the hair come out and they don't fall into one of those categories that I've mentioned a few times on this podcast? So a very different type of podcast, but one that I feel we need to begin to discuss a little bit more. So let me encourage you, step out of that silent majority, send me your messages. Let me share on your behalf your journey with hair loss, and let's see within this community if we can help each other to break those lies and to build truth. Thank you for listening. I really do look forward to the next time that we're all back together, because then we'll be hearing your story, and it'll be your story that's encouraging somebody else. As I always say, if this small, shorter podcast episode is one that you think could help somebody in your world, please pay it forward. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And until next time, as I always say, stay encouraged.